Hi, everyone. This is Jim again. I thought what I'd do with you in this session is just share with you a teaching strategy that I've developed in starting the new Music DP course, the new curriculum. Many times in workshops, I get questions, and it's inspired my thinking about music listening and about especially with the first component, the exploring component. I hear a lot of talk about how to get started. What about kids from various levels? I hear a lot about being able to scaffold music, being able to address content without prescribing it. I also, of course, hear a lot of comments and am dealing with the idea of student ownership of the work. So this is a little teaching tool. It's not prescribed to anybody. It's something that I've developed using a simple Google form. And I'm going to show how it works. This might be something you might want to work with, or maybe not. You can do with it as you will, but I just thought I'd share it with you. I'm trying to give kids a database of being able to explore music that's foreign to them, that's not common to them, that is not familiar with them, according to some of the content in the music subject guide. In the exploration component, it talks about focusing on breadth rather than depth, but yet developing the tools necessary to address various cultures and various ideas and concepts of music. So again, I came up with this guide, and well, I hope it helps. Use it as you will or not. What I do is I would assign reading or assign a task to students just as a general class assignment, and we created here what we call a music listening log. And that is basically a form that they need to fill out that's coupled with the reading or the research that they do. We happen to use a text in class. It doesn't drive the class at all, the textbook, but it's a resource, basically. The text is used as a reference book, but it provides a good database of being able to develop an understanding of music, both global, personal, and local. So when I assign a reading, I would have the students create what they call a music listening log. This is something that they can use in their own journals. They could combine it in their development of their portfolio or their written reports and so on. In their music listening log, they need to put their name, of course, and email address, and then I call it investigating music, so it's not confused with exploring or experimenting with music. This is something that might be extracted or used as a starting point, initiation point, for them to get involved in the experimentation or exploration process. So I asked them a few questions about the piece. For example, what's the genre of music you were listening to? Was it Western or non-Western? Some of the most basic questions, or other. If the music was of a Western tradition, what stylistic period was it from? I go from Middle Ages to the 20th century. I happen to go chronologically. I know many people don't. They go in terms of a structure or a style or a concept, like a mass or a nocturne or whatever. If it was music of a non-Western tradition, what part of the world was it from? Again, this is where they would be doing research in non-Western music, covering a geographic part of the world. In the former curriculum with the MLI, I would say, cover a non-Western genre, and let's take a tour of it. Name the piece of music you're listening to. Provide a copy-paste of the URL link of the piece of music you're listening to. This would normally be a YouTube link. Briefly describe how this music was being produced. In other words, the means, including terminology of the instruments. Okay, how was the music being produced? The means. This gets back to the mi, mi, ha, mi, fo, sti, ko I've talked about in another lesson. Briefly describe the meter. That's the second mi in the piece, including duple, compound, or multi-metered. Briefly describe the harmonic, mi, mi, ha, features of the piece, including but not limited to diatonic, chromatic, and atonal. I'd like to have them here develop concepts, develop a knowledge of the type of harmonic characteristics of the piece, also develop terminology and vocabulary. Briefly describe the melodic features of the piece, including but not limited to conjunct, disjunct, diatonic, chromatic, microtonal, and so on, depending on the nature of the piece, where it's from, what time period it was from. Again, building on the concepts of melodic, how melodies develop, and the vocabulary of what vocabulary musical terminology is associated with melodic treatment. Describe the form of the piece, standard form, ABA form, absolute, through composed, or whatever. Who was the composer or artist responsible for the piece? They need to submit this response and tell us a little bit more of a background of the composer or the artist. If you were going to choose an area of inquiry for the piece, what would that piece be? And then here you can see that I have the 4 areas of inquiry. Justify your choice for this AOI. Which musical context would you place this music? Personal, local, or global, or more than one? Can you compare this piece of music to any other music, familiar or unfamiliar? Again, explain the music, please. Create a short musical sample. This gets into the creating concept of it. Minimum 15 seconds, nothing elaborate. This is usually about 30 seconds, no more than a minute of stuff that just barely scratches the surface. Again, this is keeping in mind the exploring component. Either live or electronic, that models the style. Make an MP3 and include it in your journal. They extract this and they can include it in their own personal learning journal. What are some of the personal thoughts, reactions that you have to the piece? Provide at least 2 additional references or citations, URLs, that you came across in addition to the textbook when you were researching this piece. And then here's a biggie. List at least 5 music vocabulary or terminology words associated specifically with this piece of music. Post the link to your Google slide presentation. So after they do the reading, they need to make a Google slide presentation and share this presentation with the class. Here again, they're in charge of the research. They're in charge of trying to find out the background and the characteristics of the piece. They're in charge of delivering the information that they have, the knowledge that they have about this piece to the class. They take ownership of that. And finally, what types of questions would you want to further ask regarding the piece? What intrigues you about the piece, and so on. And so I had them fill that out and lead. Their responsibility is to lead. They take ownership. They have the knowledge. They take the lead in briefly covering the surface, scratching the surface of this topic that they had in the assigned reading or genre or style. But the nice thing about this, and this is what I wanted to share with you, is they fill this out. This is constant. This is a constant log. We'll keep on coming back to this. This more or less becomes sort of a weekly assignment. And then if I hit responses here, I'll do that right here. And then if I hit this Excel sheet response, okay, and hopefully that's going to pop up, okay. Now what we have here, and you can see that we've just started, this is the beginning of the year, and we've started units on the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. Again, this is based on the text reading. This is what I like about this, is that it gives a recap, sort of a database of stuff covered in class. It's a collective. It's a shared document that I would do with this. Is it music of a Western tradition? Which Western tradition is it? Non-Western. Okay, they fill it in. Name the piece listened to. So here's the piece they listened to. Here's a copy. Here's a copy of the URL. I can hit the YouTube link and open the YouTube link, and then we have a copy of what it is they covered in class. So immediately this comes back as a database, as something that they can refer to. It's taking a little bit longer because my internet's a little bit slow up here, but I think you're getting the idea. All right, okay. Oh, successors. I'll just turn that off because you get the idea. All right. Briefly describe how this music was being produced, and this is where I would start challenging the students when they make presentations, and I would ask the students to challenge one another to go deeper. Again, this is just surface. This is just getting us into the piece. Briefly describe the meter. It's multimetric. So then we would start having discussions based on inquiry. What do you mean by multimetric? Where's the evidence of multimetric in the piece that you chose? It's diatonic. What do you mean by diatonic? Where's the evidence of that? Okay. Briefly describe the melody. All right. Briefly describe the form. All right, you can see that some people here have listed specifically AA, BB, CC, ABA form, and so on. Who was the composer of the piece? All right. if you were going to choose an area of inquiry, what might you do? This becomes a possibility for when they want to start making journal entries and transfer this shared data, class data. They may want to extract something either from themselves or from one of their classmates with permission into their own music journal for the beginning of the exploration process, or what might even turn into the experimentation or even the presenting music process. Justify the choice of why you did this. Which context would it be under? Can you compare this to any other piece of music that you're familiar with, all right, or unfamiliar with? Justify it. Create a short musical example. I'll have the students commit, again, going back to the original document, make a real short sample of what it is they did and share that with the class. What are some of your personal thoughts? Provide at least 2 references of what it is you found outside of the textbooks in this. You can see some students are quite good at this. Other students need to do some work on this. I didn't use any. Okay, we want to be addressing that and so on. Here, though, too, is a list of the 5 vocabulary words. All right, a list of at least 5 music vocabulary words. I would hope that we could use these types of terminologies. All right, you notice that rhythm is misspelled here. We can use these types of terminologies to develop an understanding of the application of musical terms to music. What types of questions would you really have? This person is kind of a shallow level of inquiry. I don't really have any questions. Okay, but here's a good one. Why was this music popular? All right. How to try and emulate the sound and develop it into my own style. So you can already see sort of a deeper level of inquiry in some of these questions. It tells me a lot about where I need to go with each one of these students, but also gives me a background of how far they're deeping in to what their assignments are. Here they post a link to their presentations, and they can use this for reference. So they would have access, all the kids would have access to this document. I would hope that by the end of the class, in 2 years, there would be dozens, hundreds even perhaps, of different musical examples that students have filled in together as a group, and that everybody has reference to that. Another cool thing about this, and then I'll let you go, is that if I press Command F, I get this little find in here. Let's say that I was intrigued by, the student was intrigued by chant. So if I type in chant, I only have 1 of 10, but I can see that there were a couple instances here where chant was used. This is used to be a chant. And maybe the student is doing something with, let's say, expanding into non-Western chant, let's say Tibetan monks. And they have immediately a way of finding out where that discussion was in their own class discussion, and can start making comparisons between Western and non-Western and so on. So that's a little teaching tool I thought I'd share with you. I hope you find it helpful. I've just started it. I can't verify as to the degree to which success it's going to be, but so far, so good. I've been able to address a lot of inquiry points, issues, understandings with the kids, open the door to understanding for diverse cultures, and it's been a great segue into the exploring process. So that's that. I hope you enjoy that. I hope you find it useful, and well, that's a teaching tip. Okay? Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.